Hello viewers, I'm your host Swati Kundra. Today in South Asia Focus, we will discuss political and cultural scenario from South Asia region. First, we will talk about India, where the government's decision to wipe out 86% of the total value of currency in circulation to fight corruption and counterfeiting has surprised one and all. Experts believe the demonetization move will cause short-term pain but will ultimately lead to long-term gains for India's economy. We have a report.
We have decided that the 500 rupee and 1000 rupee currency notes presently in use will no longer be legal tender from midnight to night, that is 8th November 2016.
A bold decision by Prime Minister Narendra Modi surprised one and all. But the withdrawal of 500 and 1000 rupee banknotes from circulation is a major crackdown on corruption and the counterfeit currency in the country. The main target of Modi government's demonetization move is India's burgeoning shadow economy.
लेकिन आप इस ऑपरेशन को देखिए कि इतना बड़ा ऑपरेशन सीक्रेट रखना, उसको इंप्लीमेंट करना, उसके लॉन्ग टर्म कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस से लाभ मिलना, देश में एक ईमानदारी, क्राइम से काफी हद तक कटौती और मुक्ति, ब्लैक मनी कम करने का प्रयास, ईमानदारी जनजीवन में लाने का प्रयास, अर्थव्यवस्था का और जीडीपी का लॉन्ग टर्म में साइज बढ़े, क्योंकि ऑफिशियल इकोनॉमी बढ़ेगी, शैडो इकोनॉमी कम होगी। ये जब सारे लाभ इसमें से निकलेंगे तो देश को की एक बदली हुई तस्वीर उभर के सामने आएगी।
There are a few trouble spots in the beginning of the markets and the investors, but the government has promised that long-term consequences of demonetization will bear fruits. The top leadership itself admitted that there will be inconvenience for a few days and sought people's support in executing the move which will benefit all in future.
Indeed, a bold move in taking the country forward. My colleague Ravi Khandelwal spoke to Subrokamal Datta, an economic expert, to get an insight into the story.
Dr. Datta, there has been a very hue and cry about demonetization in India. So will it really make any impact on India's growth story?
First, in relation to the hue and cry, yes, there has been a lot of hue and cry, but hue and cry from those people who have hoarded money for the last 60-70 years. They are crying now because they really don't know where to keep the money, in relation to the growth story of the country, I think it would have a tremendous impact on the growth story of the country. And the growth, in my understanding, in the long haul, in the long run, it would be extremely positive. And there are various financial and economic reasons behind it, why I say it would be positive. First and foremost is like the exchequer of the government would get, there would be a kind of a boom on the exchequer of the government. And my understanding is like the people who are now converting black into white via the bank as well as the postal departments and all, that is going to come into the government coffers, and that would have a tremendous impact on the developmental areas of the government, especially in relation to roadways, construction, railways, shipbuilding and many more, and once that happens, that would have a spiral impact on the growth of the country.
We have seen in the media, that foreign investors, especially the bankers and many investors, they are happy with the decision of the Indian government. So how will it make an impact on the investment in the country?
I, as a financial and economic expert, I would say that yes, there is always a positive side to every major decision which is being taken, and if we really have to see this demonetization, we have to look into it with the series of reforms which the government has gone for, and especially after the passing of the GST, the GST bill, which was hanging for so many years now, and the second generation reforms in relation to insurance and banking sector, which the NDA government had passed in the parliament, those were vital parameters for the growth of the country and for development of the country. Now with those vital issues being addressed, now comes in this, the currency thing. So I understand that after 31st of December, we would see a very, very big positive impact on the overall scenario.
Now the government is ready for the budget, in a month or 2-3 months. So how will this demonetization bring the effect on the budget?
What I expect from the budget, in the coming year, in 2017-2018 budget is like, since the government would have a lot of money in its exchequer, it would be in a position to utilize that money for the welfare of the people, for developmental issues, for social issues, and things which were on hold because of lack of capital. Now the government would be in a position to utilize that money for all these developmental issues, and I think once there is a kind of a acceleration in the developmental agenda of the country, that automatically gets reflected in the economy, and once there is a reflection, there is a generation of employment, there is a generation of capital in the market, and there is a generation of the growth in different sectors of the country, and with that kind of a thing, the whole scenario becomes very, very investment friendly, especially for multinational companies and for investors from abroad.
Now we take you to Gilgit-Baltistan, a territory of erstwhile princely state of Jammu and Kashmir, which remains under Pakistan's occupation since 1947. The locals remain victims of Pakistani oppression and are suppressed of their political rights. The China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, or CPEC, which will pass from Gilgit-Baltistan, has raised serious concerns over the rights of indigenous people. We have a report.
Gilgit-Baltistan is a strategically significant territory bordering China. Since its occupation on November 4, 1947 by Pakistan, the people here are fighting for their political rights and end of colonial rule. However, Islamabad has denied even fundamental rights to the people of Gilgit-Baltistan and has used force to suppress their voice.
बदतरीन कॉलोनियल FCR, जिसे फ्रंटियर क्राइम रूल कहा जाता है, वो रूल हम पर ठोसा गया है, जो 25 साल तक जारी व सारी रहा। और इसके अलावा गिलगित-बल्तिस्तान पर 30 साल तो तकरीबन मार्शला रहा अंडर फुल मिलिट्री बूट्स। तो आप जस्ट इमेजिन, हमें मौका ही नहीं मिला कि हम अपने केस को दुनिया को समझा सकें।
Gilgit-Baltistan has an elected assembly and a council headed by the Prime Minister of Pakistan. Unfortunately, the so-called regional government is under the overall control of the Federal Ministry of Kashmir Affairs and Gilgit-Baltistan in Islamabad. Gilgit-Baltistan finds no mention in the Pakistani constitution. It is neither independent nor does it have any provincial status. The political activists who raise voice for their rights are often arrested, tortured and killed by the Pakistani security forces.
My own father, Colonel Mirza Hassan Khan, who is known as hero of War of Liberation of 1947-48, was kept under prison and torture cell in worst Pakistani jails for 7 years. मैं खुद because of differences about Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan policy by Pakistani rulers, और मैं खुद बड़ी दफ़ा जेल जा चुका हूँ, मेंटल फिजिकल टॉर्चर हो चुका है। और लास्ट ईयर even my younger brother Nadir Hassan Khan, along with other progressive and nationalist political leaders and workers, they just wanted to go to Gilgit sub-office UN to hand over a memo in a protest rally about fraudulent election and CPEC, ignoring totally Gilgit-Baltistan in the planning, execution and whatever. Not a single leader was asked about CPEC, not taken into confidence. So they were arrested, they were kept 6 months in jail, tortured.
Islamabad and Beijing have now joined hands to exploit the resources of Gilgit-Baltistan by starting construction of the multi-billion-dollar China-Pakistan economic corridor. The road and railway network from China's Xinjiang province to Pakistan's Gwadar port will pass through Gilgit-Baltistan. Activists who are opposing the project are targeted and put behind bars under sedition charges.
The human rights situation has seriously deteriorated in Gilgit-Baltistan. To know more, we are now joined by Sengay Hesnan Sering, President of Gilgit-Baltistan National Congress. Mr. Sengay, why the people in Gilgit-Baltistan continue to be terrorized by Pakistan?
The people of Gilgit-Baltistan do not have the right over their own land and resources, and it is at the mercy of the Chinese and the Pakistanis to do whatever they want. And the outcome is not going to be very pleasant, because local people have been treated really badly in the last 6 or 7 decades. And now we see that the situation is changing slowly, where local people cannot remain quiet anymore. So the activists that they have put in jail, for instance, they recently arrested 2 leaders from Awami Action Committee. Then they also arrested several activists of Balochistan National Front. And they have arrested and tortured activists of Progressive Youth Front, and many of them remain in jail. Baba Jan, for instance, Iftikhar Hussain, for instance, of Karakram National Movement, they have received life in prison. And all of these activists, they have been talking about local land rights and exposing Pakistan's crimes of land grabbing and appropriating our resources without giving benefits to the local people. Now they are talking about taking, shifting the dry port from Hunza to Pakistan in Mansehra district, near Havelian, I guess. There are lots of talk about establishing garrisons in Gilgit-Baltistan, and the land that they have confiscated and seized from local people are again, an illegal activity, because Pakistani military does not have that kind of a right if Pakistan considers Gilgit-Baltistan as a UN declared disputed area.
But Gilgit-Baltistan is a disputed territory. Will the construction of China-Pakistan economic corridor make things more complex in this region?
China is an imperialist power. China believes in expansion through different ways. And its expansion towards Pakistan and in the Middle East and the Persian Gulf is happening through Gilgit-Baltistan. It is happening at the cost of the local people and their rights. So that is something that I believe that India should also be concerned about. United States should be concerned about, the United Nations should be concerned about. That imperialism is not something that we can promote and we can afford in 21st century, and China is rising as a superpower, but at the same time an expansionist country. And what it is doing in South China Sea, in Tibet, in Xinjiang, and now in Gilgit-Baltistan, it is treating Gilgit-Baltistan like Tibet and Xinjiang. And we will appreciate if the international community, including India, takes serious notice of all these policies, and local people should be open to receiving diplomatic support from different countries in this regard.
Now we focus on Maldives, an island nation looking forward to find new areas of investment in IT services, port development, shipping and international logistics. Vice President of Maldives was recently in India to showcase investment opportunities in his country. Our report.
Sitting on the busiest sea lanes in the world, Maldives is home to some 300,000 people. Maldives is now shifting focus from its traditional tourism and fisheries to other sectors, with priority being given to job creation. Vice President of Maldives, Andullah Jihad, who was in India recently, inaugurated the 3rd edition of the Maldives Investment Forum in New Delhi and invited investment in areas including IT and financial services, transshipment, bulk breaking and bunkering.
I would like to assure all potential investors and the business community at large that the Maldives is open for business. It is open 24 hours for business in India, from India. And we will welcome all investors.
India has been a leading development partner of Maldives and has established several colleges and hospitals there. India has also provided $100 million standby credit facility to Maldives, including long-term loans and revolving credit for trade.
There is definitely a lot of potential for our trade to grow. India already has significant presence in Maldives. State Bank of India has some very old relations, strategic relations with the country, and has assisted Maldives in several ways. Indian companies are also investing in tourism, infrastructure, housing, education, financial services, and renewable energy. Yet there's huge potential for the countries to partner.
Ties between India and Maldives soured when Maldives government abruptly terminated an India-Malaysia joint venture for modernizing the Malé airport in 2012. The incident saw Indian industries seeking greater predictability and protection for investments in the Maldives. Relations improved with the visit of the Indian Foreign Minister Sushma Swaraj in October 2015. It was during that visit that India and the Maldives agreed to hold investment roadshow in New Delhi.
Moving on, a suicide bomber killed at least 27 people and wounded dozens on November 21st at a crowded Shiite mosque in Afghan capital Kabul. This is the third major attack on minority Shiites in the city since July. We have a report.
The attacker entered the Bakir-ul-Olam mosque shortly after midday as worshippers gathered for the Arba'in, a Shiite ritual marking the end of a 40-day mourning period for the 7th century death of Imam Hussein, grandson of the Prophet Muhammad. One survivor, Muhammad Yasin, had been praying at the mosque.
گرفت کل بچه‌تا باز با گریختیم دیگه بسیار بود تا حالت خراب گریختیم شیشه بخی زیر پای با کرد شده بود.
Bloody sectarian rivalry between Sunni and Shiite Muslims has been relatively rare in Afghanistan, a majority Sunni country, but the attack underlines the deadly new dimension that growing ethnic tension could bring to its decades-long conflict. This is the third major attack on Shiite targets in Kabul, all claimed by Islamic State.
To speak more on this attack, we are now joined by defense expert Kamar Agha. Mr. Agha, why has there been a sudden increase in attacks on Shia Muslims in Afghanistan?
They believe that Shias are not Muslims. They have dubbed Shias as non-Muslims. So their treatment is the same as that of Hindus or Sikhs or Christians or anybody. Even now they don't believe, believe that the Sufi Muslims are also not true Muslims. So their dargahs or their place of worship are also being attacked by them. This is going on,
ISIS has claimed responsibility of attack on Shia mosque. Is this a new tactic to create ethnic tensions in war-torn Afghanistan?
Basic ideology of all these organizations, be it ISIS, Taliban, Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed, is all same, They are attempting to create chaos and anarchy. And the chaos and anarchy is possible by creating, easiest way is to create chaos and anarchy is by creating ethnic, religious tensions. So this is what they are doing, and they have been doing for quite some time. They have done it in Afghanistan. First it was experimented in Afghanistan, and then same thing we have witnessed in Syria, Iraq, Yemen, and many other countries of even North Africa, Nigeria, and Mali, Chad, Niger, Cameroon, and other countries, Somalia. The same pattern you would see. First it was experimented in Afghanistan. So ISIS knows, it cannot come to power through popular will or through elections. So the only method is to create chaos, anarchy, and then capture power. So they have been doing this, and Afghanistan is no different to it, And their attempt is not only they want to create their base in Afghanistan, and from there they want to go to Central Asia and many other places, India and other countries of the region.
Let's move to Bangladesh, where hundreds of Rohingya Muslims have been pouring to refugee camps following escalation of violence in Myanmar. They are fleeing as Myanmar troops step up their offensive against Muslim militants. We have a report.
It's distressing time for Rohingya refugees arriving in Bangladesh from neighboring Myanmar. More than 500 refugees who arrived at United Nations camps in Cox's Bazar accuse soldiers of killing family members and burning down their homes in Myanmar. Myanmar's military and the government have denied the allegations. However, the residents and civil rights groups say that soldiers have raped Rohingya women.
We are observing the situation currently, and we are also coordinating with the law enforcing agencies and local administration and waiting for their direction and decisions.
Security at 104 miles long Bangladesh-Myanmar border has been tightened as Rohingya were continuing to try and enter the country. The escalating violence in Myanmar has led to nearly 90 deaths and displaced an estimated 30,000 people.
Nepal's Bhaktapur is known not only for its historical temples but also for Thangka paintings. Young artists have taken to the ancient art form of Thangka in order to preserve it. Let's take a look.
Having its roots in Tibet, the magnificent Thangka paintings are not only valued for their aesthetic beauty, but primarily for their use as aids in meditational practices. Practitioners use Thangkas to develop a clear visualization of a particular deity, strengthening their concentration and forging a link between themselves and the deity. Today, the young generation artists in Nepal are working to preserve the ancient art. One such youth is Suresh Tamang, who works at Hastagola Mandala Thangka Art Center in Taumadhi, Bhaktapur city. Tamang, a graduate, followed his father's footsteps to learn Thangka painting.
Thangka is teased or learned with the generation, and there is no any school, college, university to learn these types of painting. So we have to learn it from our ancestor. Like in my family, Thangka painting was started by my grandfather, and he is my father. Now I am also learning the Thangka painting.
In recent times, a number of young artists can be seen making Thangka paintings around this ancient city. The amateur painters, who are trained by masters, work in turn to finish the painting. A single painting can take up to 7 or 8 weeks, depending on the quality and size of the work. Manish Lama, in his mid-20s, is supporting his family business of selling Thangka paintings. Thangka painting, which is done on cotton cloth, is mostly liked by foreign tourists.
In present context, actually it's a season time. There is much of selling here. The season is October, November and December. It's quite seasonable time compared to other seasons. And most of the market is taken by Chinese people. Okay. Most of the Chinese, they purchase this Thangka.
The passion of these youth in this century-old art form will go a long way in preserving Tanka.
With that, we come to the end of this week's episode of South Asia Focus. Be with us again next week at the same time. Goodbye until then.